Hello again, everyone. Deflect here, Firm but Fair Gaming. As you've all seen, I'm sure a million times now that there has been some tank tuning coming up in the War Within. There's also been some reverts to DKs, but we'll get into that. The overall goal of the tank tuning was to make it healers have to heal the tank. Essentially, we're just going to shorten this up a lot. Survivability was too much on the tanks, and they wanted healers to do more. Tank damage intake should be steady, not too fast. Tanks will have strong answers to threat for periods of danger, but less sustained self-healing, which is what you should be looking at if you want healers to do something. Now, I'm going to put this in a perspective over two ways as I play tank and healer. It was nice as a healer to not have to worry too much about a tank because there's a lot of stuff going on in a dungeon when you're a healer. The affixes, the kicks, the stuns, they're all there. And as a healer, you're trying to do all those. Also, the group damage we were taking was crazy, so you're trying to heal up the group. What I don't want to see as a healer is all of a sudden 2 DPS get hurt or 1 DPS in a tank where you should have to pick and choose. Well, they're both low now. Which one do I got to choose? Well, I obviously got to choose the tank to heal them back up because they don't have anything to heal themselves back up now because they're out. And then one of the DPS is just going to die to rot damage or something because you don't have enough globals to heal both. Um, that's what I hope doesn't happen, but I don't know how this is going to play out. What they should have done, a lot of this is reduction to your defenses as tanks, and I'm not going to go through it all. If you want to see it, lots of people went through it. I'm not going to do that. But a lot of it is like a lot of your defensive reductions, which is weird because it wasn't the defensives that made the tank strong. It was the healing after the defensives that made the tank strong. So Guardian Druid did get hit on some of the healing frenzy regen. Um, but then their armor's down, so your hits are taking less. Like a lot of stuff comes down to reduce damage taken. All goes down. Your defensives are getting hit very, very quick. Their durations are getting hit. The amount they defend against is getting hit. And now, as a tank, on the tank perspective, I could hit all my buttons correctly, and if the healer doesn't heal me, doesn't have time, is worried on something else, focuses on someone else for a second, I can go down even though I played fine. That is going to be a problem. And again, I'm sure you've heard it in other things. No tank wants kite meta. Kite meta is so shit that nobody wants to play it. And these, I don't personally understand the reduction to the defensive kits. I can see the reduction to the self healing because some of the tanks, self healed just great. You wouldn't, need too much from the healer. You still needed a bit, but the self healing was very sustainable, and it was their biggest part. But you had to be able to take the hit. So are they going to reduce the damage in the dungeon to match this? Is my biggest question, I guess. I don't want to see a spot where I'm relying on a healer. The healer's not healing me, so I have to run away from the packs, and I'm just sitting there running around like when you had necrotic. It was such shit. You couldn't do anything. You're not even hitting buttons. You're just running around in fucking circles. It was terrible. I don't want to see that, and I hope it doesn't come to that. But they're like look at the ones on Paladin. You just lost 4 seconds on Sentinel, 3 seconds on Iatir. Like these are big time nerfs for Paladin. So you are not going to have defensives available for every situation with all your defense or with all these nerfs, and I think that is bad. I think if you were worried about the self healing, why didn't you attack just the self healing and leave the defensives where they were? And again, I don't know if they're going to tune the dungeon accordingly, but that is a big problem. Here's some, here's your heal reduction, which is fine, but reduced damage taken by 4% now. So now you're losing damage, reducing the haste, reducing the damage. This one's actually reduce magic damage you take by 6. So that's actually a slight buff. Increased stamina armor by 8 was 10. Like these are all defensive capabilities, not healing related, which is, I don't know, I think pretty bad myself. And again, you're talking about a spec that is the least played spec in the game. Dragonflight Season 4 had almost 20 million runs done. Of the 20 million, like tanks are 3.7. They're less than healers. Healers are 4, tanks are 3 point almost 8. Less than healers. Least played spec in the game. And now you're going to nerf them. So I don't know. Now the real problem that I guess Blizzard doesn't want to address. So there's a lot of things going on in the dungeon. The healers have a lot to do, but they were complaining that what I don't understand, the top 0.01% was complaining, or people were complaining that 0.01% could do keys without a healer. Again, they're not doing keys without a healer. For all the people watching who you think they're doing the key without a healer, they're not. They're doing the first pull, maybe 2 without a healer, doing DPS, porting out of the dungeon, which then doesn't go back and change your role, porting out of the dungeon, going into a healer role, and going back in the dungeon. That's what they're doing. So they're not doing the dungeon without a healer. They're doing a pull or 2 without the healer. And the reason they can do that, which is the reason that has fucked the balancing on everything, is Augmentation Evoker. This is one class, the only class. You literally take this class knowing you're going to lose overall damage. You're not worried about the damage it throughputs. You're not worried about anything. You're worried about buffing your healer, buffing your tank, and all the defensive capabilities it brings. Not only does it bring defensives, it brings cauterize, it brings neutralize. You have 2 cleanse. You have a bleed stopper. You have knock up, knock back, stun, interrupt, fly over stun for group stun. Like, you have everything as an Aug Evoker. And I play Aug Evoker too. And I still think the class should fucking go. It is a class, and you bring Bloodlust to boot. It's a class that has ruined the balancing in the game because they can't balance around Augmentation Evoker. And that's what I think is why they're nerfing the tanks. Because they are able to do these pulls with an Aug Evoker because you're running off healer, Aug Evoker, which is an off healer, and a mage, which has the most defenses in the game. So that is the sole reason you can do these first couple pulls without one. It's not that they're, it's not the damage isn't there. It's that they have enough to sustain. Like, I guarantee, I don't even know if they'll have a log. I doubt it. But if they have a log, I bet you these 3 classes are each pulling around 40 to 60k HPS, all of them. Like, it's just, I almost guarantee that's what they're at, or 40 to 60. So they are replacing the healer for the pull, but it's because they can have an Aug Evoker, which will now mitigate your damage, and then stop your tank from dying. They'll be able to heal you back up. So that was a vault. I don't think they will, but we'll see. Yeah, there's not even unable to fetch data. But anyway, that's why they're able to run it. And you can't balance around Aug Evoker. It's just not possible. I guess it is possible, very unlikely. So I don't know why they haven't addressed that issue. If Aug Evoker is in the game, the healer balance is going to be awful. Because they exist, they can bring the defensive so you don't get one shot. They can bring healing so they can heal you back up. And yeah, I can't get a log on these to show you. But it's the way it's going to be. Until you remove Aug Evoker, and Aug Evoker will be in every high key. Until you change the way it is, it will be in every high key until you either get rid of the defensive capability of it, nobody gives, or the buffing to the healer. Nobody gives a shit about the DPS. The DPS of an Aug Evoker, you're taking a net 15 to 20% loss. That is your net loss that's going to happen on it. And people are okay with that because they can survive and live, and then you can have the priest and, fire mage just do a shit ton of damage. So, I don't know. Until they address that, the tanks and the healers are going to get kind of the shit out of the stick. And it's just going to continue on. Healers, in any key that isn't coordinated like this. So this is comms, planned route, planned kicks. Everyone has their assignment. Fine, you can get away with it. almost, you're again, this is the 0.01% of the game. Rest of the groups, if you're pugging, you're definitely not fucking getting this benefit. If you are pugging and you're a healer, you probably don't have a global to save for the tank because everybody usually a DPS stands in something, or kicks are missed, or the DPS isn't kicking at all, and abilities are getting off, and people are getting trucked, and you're just trying to save the group. That's the pug life, and that's the way it always is. So until you have a group that is strictly dedicated and you're running with, you won't be able to get the benefit of it anyway. And then this tank nerf is just going to piss you off because you're going to try and have to heal the tank up as well. Where the self-sustain of a tank before was really helpful. Now, as a tank view, I don't want to rely on a healer. That's gonna aggravate me if I go down because the healer, if I'm in a pug and they're not paying attention. I'm in a pug, they're not healing for very much because they're not doing their job right. Lots of things can go wrong, or they just don't have the globals to commit to me because in dungeons there's so many abilities going off that it's very hard to get a global in. So I don't know whether the thing is now more people are gonna have to be in Discord, or more people are gonna have to have assignments off the start. Like, hey, you always kick moon, you always kick circle, you always kick triangle. I don't know if that's what it's gonna come to, but definitely with the tank nerfs, you are going to be without defensives for part of some pulls throughout the dungeon. Almost all the time, you will be out without defensives, and that part is going to be very frustrating. So if they wanted to nerf it, I would have just stuck with the healing. If that's what you wanted to do, stick with their just minimize the healing that a tank can do to itself, but leave all the defensives where they were. And again, you're never going to balance this shit until Augmentation is out of the game. Like I said before, they should have made this spec. If you were heart set on bringing an Augmentation in or another dragon spec, you should have made it a tank spec. Again, that would have raised the popularity in tanks, and you wouldn't have to deal with this support class that now is mandatory in any high key because of just the defensives it brings and the utility. Damage is irrelevant. Defensive and utility are king. That's my 2 cents. Anyways, if you stayed this long, hopefully you liked the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, deflect, firm but fair gaming. We'll see you in the next video.